Yes. Okay. Well, welcome everyone. It's really a pleasure to be with you. I don't know, I think it's the morning for some of you, afternoon for others, evening for another group. So really, thank you so much for taking the time during your day to join this information webinar that we are organizing to tell you about this new project, this UNESCO project, and that is implemented by the wonderful OWSD team and the gender and science team as well. And this project is thanks to the support of the International Development Research Center from Canada. And so you can see the name of this project on the first slide. As you can see, it's kind of a long name. It's Gender Inclusive Science Institutions and Systems that we find the nice acronym GenSIS. We really like it, so I hope you also like it. And this will really be the name throughout our communication for this project as well. So that GenSIS is the name to remember from this information webinar. And so this project will be about how we are thinking of strengthening the leadership of women in research and higher education in next years, thanks to this new project. So to start, because I think now we're a bit more stable in the number, please mute your microphone when you're not speaking. I can hear a bit of background noise behind me. So for my colleagues, if you can help me mute them, it would be great. So please, yes, keep your microphone off when we're not speaking so that it's smooth for everyone. You can keep your camera on because for now the connection looks good and it's very nice to see your faces as well. So please, if you can put your camera on, I think it's very nice actually. And then we'll be speaking for more or less 40 minutes. But please put all your questions and inputs in the chat. We'll try to cover them during the Q&A discussion, and also we'll get back to you after this webinar to the questions you might put in the chat that we might not have time to answer. And then if we have time during the Q&A, of course, we'll work by giving you the floor if you can raise your online Zoom hands, let's say. And the session is recorded, and I hope that you saw it when joining the webinar. So basically, that's how we're going to spend the next hour together. So we'll give you some little introduction about the team as well and the project, and then really dive into the GenSIS project and also tell you how you can get involved, because I guess that's also why you're here, or at least we hope so. And then we'll hopefully have time for a Q&A discussion with you through the chat and with the online hands. And then we'll have some closing remarks of 5 minutes by our donor and by the partners. So before I give the floor to my colleagues, so we just wanted to tell you a little bit because some of you might come from more the UNESCO Gender Equality in Science working groups. Other might come from OWSD, which is the Organization for Women in Science for the Developing World. We're actually merging our communities. So welcome from both sides, and it's really great to see you all together. For those who do not know, OWSD is actually a program under TWAS, which is the World Academy of Sciences, and TWAS is sort of a unit, let's say, under UNESCO as well. So we are doing very complementary work. We both have connections with women scientists. And so we're actually working together now to kind of create this new connection between women scientists, policymakers, and institutions, because we already have all these great networks, and now through this project, we finally found a great way of working together to really strengthen our connections. But we'll tell you more about it later. So for those coming from probably the OWSD chapters who might not know really what UNESCO is doing at headquarters and field offices, here a little of summary of our different types of work. As you can see, we've been working on gender equality in science for a long time. Has been a priority, gender equality for UNESCO for decades. And for example, you might know this program, L'Oréal UNESCO for Women in Science program that started in 1997. So quite a long time ago. And for those who kind of know UNESCO recently, you might know it through the call to action closing the gender gap in science that was launched last year. And that is really one of the key projects, and I'm going to highlight this one for this slide because the call to action basically is kind of our framework that we're using now for our work on gender in science, and it's based on three pillars that you can see here on the slide. So the first one is about dismantling gender stereotypes and biases in science, so more at the societal level. The second one is about opening educational pathways for girls in science, so the educational level. And the last one is about creating empowering workplace environments. And this is actually in this third pillar that this project is really pulling in, let's say. And because it's really actually takes a look at the workplace environments, meaning the science ecosystems and the science institutions. And this will be our goal with this project, as we will explain in a minute. And so through this call to actions, through this specific pillar, our objective now is to go one step further and actually work with really policymakers, but more at the institutional level. And you will understand all that in a minute. But before explaining more about the project, I'll just give the floor to Tonya Blores from OWSD to also explain a little bit of OWSD's current actions and initiatives.
Thank you, Laura, and good morning, good afternoon, good evening to you all. Great to see so many of you. I can see 184 on my participants slide. That's fantastic. And we also had a meeting this morning here in morning for us in Europe, and there were also another 200 in that meeting. So this call is obviously attracting a lot of interest from all around the world, and that's very exciting for us. So OWSD stands for the Organization for Women in Science for the Developing World, and we're a membership organization, and we currently have over 12,000 members who are all women scientists living and working in the developing world. When there are more than 20 in any one country, they can apply to establish an OWSD national chapter. And you can see on the screen right now for your perusal all of the 59 chapters that we have around the world divided by regions. So Asia and the Pacific region, we have 15 chapters. In the Arab region, we have 6 chapters currently. In the Africa region, we have 28 chapters. And in Latin America and the Caribbean, we have 11 chapters. And these chapters, as you can see, are in very different contexts, both geographically and politically. Also, in terms of science and technological resources, they have great differences between them. But what they share in common is a commitment to making the lives of women in science better. So, and giving women in science a more central place in the design and implementation of research in their countries and in their regions. And we do that in many different ways. But the most important way is this new project that we're going to be describing to you today. And the chapters will be the key applicants in this process, but they will need to be involving and communicating with policymakers at all levels in their countries. And so we hope that you will find a way to meet together during this meeting, possibly, and to connect up and understand how best you can work together. These national chapters, representatives from each of these 59 chapters were invited to our General Assembly, which just took place in Bogotá, Colombia. We were able to bring over 180 women to that meeting, and it coincided with the interregional dialogue organized by an organization called OWSD, an interregional dialogue between Latin America and Africa in higher education. And that's really been a starting point for us for speaking and working with the members to understand how can we really make a difference at the structural level in their countries to ensure that women's voices on the ground are heard and also essential in designing new policies for their communities and their countries. Next slide. So that's the backbone of OWSD is the membership and the chapters. And then we have some additional programs that we've funded over the years that have traditionally supported individuals. And it's with these individuals that we can really work so closely also with the chapters. One of our programs has been a South to South PhD fellowship program. We have over 500 awardees from that program. We have an early career fellowship program, which enables women from least developed countries to establish centers of research excellence in their countries. And the funds can be used for a variety of things, but they could be equipment, setting up laboratories, inviting keynote speakers, developing a curriculum, all kinds of things that they might need to do in order to keep their research at an international level. Then we have another program that we just introduced last year called the Wisdom Scholarship for displaced women scientists. So directly in response to an unfortunate occurrence these days where many countries are in conflict and many people are finding themselves displaced, and we are focusing on women in those situations. How can we support them to continue their careers in science and their contribution to science? And we're also interested in investigating from a research point of view what are the different challenges that women face in that context to men, and so how can we work with institutes to support them better. And finally, we also have a program which is around recognizing, rewarding, and making visible brilliant women scientists from countries where people don't often see women scientists in the news or online. And we try and make these women as visible as we can and reward them for their achievements in very challenging circumstances. So that's the background to all the work that OWSD has been doing. Next slide, please. And now we're going to take you through this new project that Laura has already started to mention. And in order to describe that project to you, we will also talk with Alessandro Bello, who is a senior consultant in gender equality in science, technology, and innovation, working with OWSD currently, and with Puka Mala, who is a senior leadership and governance consultant for OWSD and is currently working heading up the Nepal Leadership Academy. So over to you, Laura.
Thank you, Tonya. So before giving the floor to my lovely colleagues here, I just wanted to tell you a little bit. So first, why? Why are we launching this new project? Why are we launching GenSIS? Well, we have already been doing a lot on as Tonya previously explained. So basically, what we have been observing is that despite like decades of efforts trying to advance gender equality in science, some issues are simply not going away, and that this requires actually like another level of efforts and really a much more holistic approach if we really, really want to make real progress and on the long term. And so basically, the three issues that we identified when thinking about this project is that, of course, unfortunately, we still that there are still some persistent gender gaps in STEM fields, of course, even stronger in some disciplines and in some regions, but still at the global level, there is this level that 33% of researchers globally are women, and this percentage at the global level, it's not moving, basically. And then we see, of course, that the gender gaps are even more pronounced when we look at the leadership level and in decision-making roles in most or even all the sectors. And this also is very key because if you don't have someone at the highest level to make things change, then things will be very hard to change. And the second issue we see is that these gaps, of course, are just not the result of individual choices. Women scientists really continue to face some structural constraints at every level, whether it's at the institutional level, at the national level, and of course at the systemic levels. And we've had the chance to talk with many women scientists from our network, and we've really been trying to listen to you and to understand what of these are these key barriers and challenges. Um, and I think what really came up in every single discussion we've had is that the issue is not about the access itself. It's really more also globally about the environment in which they work, in which they study, and how that environment enables sometimes in positive places or limits in the most negative their full participation. And the third issue we saw is that most of the existing initiatives around the world, including those that we are doing, the team at UNESCO or at OWSD as well, most of our efforts have really been more focused on supporting individuals, so women scientists at the individual level, by highlighting them as role models, by awarding fellowships, by providing training. And of course, this intervention are essential. But they might not be enough on their own. And so if we really, really want to make long-term change, we actually need to complement these actions with a much more structural and sort of systemic approach, and one that actually really looks directly at the barriers that are embedded in our science ecosystems and see also what would work with institutions to actually transform and remove these barriers. So these are the three issues. The good news is that when there are challenges, it means that there are opportunities that go with them. And that's what we try to spot. What are the key opportunities that we can have working together at the national and international level? So first, we have seen lately that there is really a growing demand from institutions. And when I say institutions, it can be universities, research institutions, STI ministries, for example, that are really increasingly coming to us, UNESCO, for guidance. And in general, they're asking for what? They ask for data, for evidence. They want to understand what has worked somewhere in the world, what hasn't worked, why, and actually asking sort of for what we call capacity building opportunities. So the appetite, let's say, for this kind of project is clear. Policymakers want to talk with institutions, with women scientists, and just by saying that this morning there were over 200 participants in this afternoon as well, it really proved that the demand is there. There is no doubt. Then secondly, we can see as well that there is a growing momentum right now happening within UNESCO. And when I mean UNESCO again, it's the work at headquarters, in field offices, with OST. And we see that this call to action, for example, that we launched last year, has really created this new framework, this new community of stakeholders as well. Well, for example, also, as Tonya was mentioning, there was this General Assembly that took place in Bogotá last month that brought together so many wonderful women scientists and policymakers. Then we also have, of course, the support of IDRC, where also they are launched wonderful recent publications about dismantling gender stereotypes and biases in science. And I think Matilda is there, so please, Matilda, now is the moment to also share your most recent publication in the chats because it's really, really great. So there is all this growing momentum happening. So that's a big opportunity that we have. And the last one that I already mentioned, of course, is the strong global networks that we all have been building through all our different initiatives that Tonya mentioned, that I mentioned, where we have this community of institutions, policymakers, women scientists, including science granting councils. We all have it through our different projects. And so now the moment is up to merge everyone and to actually really advance together in a much more cohesive way as well. And so based on all of that, so what is GenSIS? So I hope that from my little pitch, you understood that it's a focus on the science ecosystem and using our global community, but a way that we phrase it, where we try to summarize everything, is that GenSIS is a new 3-year global initiative that is designed to drive gender inclusion across science institutions and systems by generating evidence and data to better understand where the gaps are and what needs to change, but also supporting inclusive policies and practices in higher education, and STI institutions. And then lastly, of course, by building these strong networks to advance women's leadership in science. And so again, not individually, but collectively. And last but not least, before I really give the floor to my colleague Pukar first, this is a bit kind of the key numbers, let's say, to remember when talking about GenSIS. So as I mentioned, it's a 3-year initiative starting now, running until end of 2028. There were more than 20,000 people today that were contacted in the sense of outreach as we are merging our mailing list. So the outreach of this project will become bigger and bigger and bigger with time. There's a focus, let's say, on 4 regions in particular, especially at the national level, with the committees that Alessandro will explain soon. But in the end, if you're from Europe or North America, no worries, there will also be a big part that you will be involved at the international level. Then there will be some national gender and science committees that Ale will explain in a minute, up to 15. We'll also have this committee of practice of institutions at the global level with around 25 of them, maybe more if we have more demand. And then the project, especially, that's the key number to remember, is that it's based on 3 phases. And I will let my colleague Pukar explain the 3 phases so that you understand concretely what is going to happen. Pukar, the floor is yours. We cannot hear you. No, we're leaving a little mystery of these 3 phases. No.
Uh,
Yes, I think.
you can hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you now. Wonderful. Thank
Perfect.
you for the little
Sorry.
mystery and teaser.
No, I was using the earphone.
Go for it.
But this is wonderful. I am so delighted and honored to be here with 210 now. And this afternoon, I'm in Nepal. There were 220 plus people. I mean, this is just wonderful. It to me says science is global citizenship. Um, so, you know, when we hear what Laura and Tonya have said so far, what we're hearing is this project GenSIS is really about creating that enabling environment for gender equity in the sciences, right? That's what we're hearing. And then what we are also hearing is in order to be able to do that, this project is looking to building on UNESCO's and OWSD's work around supporting science innovations. Now it's trying to support the work in these countries around innovation, science innovation ecosystems, right? So from innovations to ecosystems, that's sort of the work that this project is trying to do. And in doing that, there are 3 components. There's a first phase on data and evidence, the second on building capacity at the national level, and then there's the third phase around knowledge sharing. Let's go to the first phase. Next slide. Next slide. Yes, thank you. So, to do this work, what we want to begin with is a bottom up and a real understanding of where things are on the ground, where things are at the national level. And in doing so, we want to begin by forming a national gender in science committee. So, there's already these national chapters of OWSD, and these national GIS committees will have some of the OWSD national chapter members, but it will also have some representation from the government, relevant policy institutions, academia, and others. So basically, this becomes this platform to support the work throughout this project. So it creates the authorizing environment so that, the work that we do through GenSIS lives on beyond the life of this project. The first thing that we do then, thereafter the formation, is to collect data at the national level, right? So to gather data from the academic institutions, policy institutions, so that we know what the policy reform areas are that is most urgent for gender equity in science. And once we've sort of identified these policy reform areas, in order to make changes, we also need to identify and understand the governance arrangements in the institutions that are most pertinent to those policy areas. And that's what we're also going to do in through by establishing this international community of practice institutions. Next slide, please. Okay, so once we've developed an understanding of what the policy reform areas are and what the governance arrangements are needed based on data and evidence, right? Based on data and evidence, not just emotions, but also evidence. We want to also work on building institutional capacity. And we've often heard of a lot of work around, no developing good policies, but then not being able to deliver results, right? So a question that often is asked in the developing world is why are our policies failing successfully, right? That's sort of a question that emerges often, and one immediate response might be capability gap in our countries. But is it really capability gap or is it a capability trap? Right? Maybe our nations do actually have the resources, but we've not been able to leverage them in innovative ways by working together. And so this is why this phase of enhanced institutional capacity actually has two parts. The first is a policy leadership program where the National GIS Committee go through leadership modules. So they learn different soft and technical skills needed to understand systemic change. And then they're going to apply that learning through policy innovation projects to bring about some change in the reform areas that have been identified in phase one. So that's what this way, what we are learning, we're also applying and making some change. And we want to see how that change leads to further institutional reforms, right? At scale institutional reforms. And this is where the next part helps because, in the first phase, we identified, the institutional best practices. And here we want to match the reform seeking institutions in our countries with reform leading institutions around the world, right? So we want to learn from what is happening around the world that will support us to go in this journey of policy reform even better. Next slide, please. So throughout this process, we're learning a lot and we want to make sure we institutionalize the learnings. And this comprises of two parts. First, throughout the process, we'll be gathering evidence, analyzing lessons learned, so a lot of case studies, policy briefs, all of that. But then we also want to amplify the impact and create more visibility of the work that's happening at the national level, internationally. So there's going to be many outreach activities, including, webinars, dialogues, and international high-level forums. Thank you. Now I'll pass it over to my friend Alessandro.
Thank you. Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. As we were saying, it's wonderful to see such strong engagement and interest today. And from this afternoon session, but also from this morning, and as we were saying, your participation highlights also how urgent and how essential is to work, to keep working together to really drive real progress towards gender equality. I will do my best now to cover as many details as possible within the limited time available. as my colleague Pucar was saying, we was talking about one phase, improve evidence and data for policy reforms, and the establishment of these national gender and science committees up to the 15 we were talking about. So how you can get involved? Well, there's going to be a call for expression of interest. So you can submit this expression of interest form that is going to be led by the OWSD national chapters in collaboration with the key national partners. We are going to get back to this because one of the spirit of this project, it's really that we want to have an holistic approach. There are really space for different institutions to participate within the project. So there's going to be we are going to launch it tomorrow, most probably. Already is going to be, the expression of interest form is going to be already online on the OWSD website. And you have until the 31st of March 2026 to submit expression of interest. And since it's a competitive process, of course, applications must demonstrate readiness to establish and convene the national gender and science committees, but also strong institutional capacity and strategic partnerships with national science and education and research authorities. So as we say, it can be submitted by all OWSD national chapters in the Global South. These are capillary network of women scientists in different countries in Africa, Latin America, Asia, and the Pacific and the Arab states. Tonya presented today earlier, and my colleague also added again a list in the chat, because we want to have some bottom-up approach and bottom-up process. And so what to expect to deliver? Establish a functional national gender and science committees. And as we say, it's not going to be only a work of the OWSD national chapters, because they are going to collaborate and work in collaboration with different key national partners. And that's why the GIS committees are going to be composed of around 10 members from the OWSD national chapters, but also other key institutions, science, technology, innovation authorities, educational authorities, universities, private sectors, etc., scientific associations. So this morning, for instance, there was a question in the chat asking if there is already an existing network working towards reducing the gender gap in gender equality in STEM. Can they participate? Of course, there would be an added value, actually, as member of the national GIS committees. So, and one of the first activities that is going to be done by these committees is to lead national gender and STEM data and evidence collections. As you all know, everywhere there is a data gap. So through these committees, we're going to collect high quality, comparable data and evidence, and also then analyze these findings to generate robust evidence and produce national report, national gender in STEM status report. We're going to collect data on education research. We're going to collect qualitative and quantitative data at a different level, again, with an holistic approach. Also, beyond that, evidence about perception and attitudes of young women towards scientific careers, understanding the causes of not choosing the STEM fields or the dropout rate, or understanding and assessing the challenges that women are facing when pursuing a career in STEM, including career advancement and opportunities. We have done a pilot project before with the Bolivia, Zimbabwe, and Rwanda. We have developed some tools. So the idea also is this GIS committee, they adapt and improve even further, of course, these tools in order to have robust, sound, and adaptive, but at the same time, comparable data. And then we're going to translate this data, this evidence, into policy solutions. So you're really using this evidence to co-design and pilot gender transformative policies, action plans, and recommendations tailored to national realities. And last but not least, also mobilize knowledge and sustaining engagement. So really to scale good practices, drive impact, and especially also ensure sustainability. And two, there's going to be, of course, benefits and opportunity for each country participating, to the National Gender and Science Committee and the project, up to 25,000 euro to implement the full evidence to action cycle from the data collection to the policy pilots, but also technical methodological leadership training tailored to the specific needs, but give also the possibility of the participation in a global community of practices advancing gender inclusive science ecosystem, and enhance national and institutional visibility through the UNESCO's and other international platforms. And this will really give opportunities for regional and global leadership, including roles as in peer learning and in cross-regional exchanges. We might go to the next slide, please. I'm going to just give you some very quick information also about, as we were saying, about the template of the expression of interest. We were saying that it's going to be some sort of competitive process. So the core criteria for the evaluation for the selections is going to be, of course, the strength of the national chapters, but also the proposal itself, the strengthness of the proposal itself. And what we were saying, it's important that there are not only those national chapters, but also key partners, key institutions within the ecosystem participating in it. So it's going to be important also the institutional linkages, the stakeholder engagement capacity. So basically the capacity to convene policymakers, academia, private sectors, former OWSD alumni, etc. And of course, also the composition of the National Gender in Science Committee itself, and institutional and resource commitment. Also, that is going to be important if there are other partners that can support with in-kind or financial contribution to the activities and tasks that is going to be taken out by the GIS committees. There's going to be more other, of course, I see that there's several criteria or bonus point if there is engagement with other networks, if there is what is the potential for interregional dialogue, if there was already a prior data collection experiences. So again, you will find very, very soon the expression of interest itself and the template, the form to submit to participate, but it's not also over. We said that the deadline is March 2026. So before the deadline, we are also going to organize a specific online meetings to support or to guiding process, let's say, for completing the template and submitting the expression of interest. We saw also that many of you are from Latin America or French-speaking countries. So in the chat, also feel free, if it's easier for you, to ask questions in Spanish or French or Portuguese, up to there, I think. And so we can also reply to that. Thank you. And Laura, back to you. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Ale. So yes, a lot of information, and that's the last bit of information we'll give you before the Q&A. Hopefully we'll have time. So you just heard now from my colleague Ale how to be part of this project at the national level with the National Gender and Science Committees and in the Global South. Now, the second layer, let's say, of engagement in this global project is looking at the international level and with the International Committee of Practice of Institutions for Closing the Gender Gap in Science. It's a long name, that will also be creating to kind of be complementary with the national committees. So that's another way of getting involved. So what is this International Committee of Practice of Institutions? So basically, it will be a global network of chosen higher education and STI institutions that already demonstrate some very good, strong evidence-based practices for advancing gender equality in science that are already implemented, that have shown to work, and also institutions that are also willing to be sharing their experience in the implementation of these practices in order to inspire institutional reform worldwide. So that's really the idea, is to have this international network of this type of institutions. And again, it could be science granting councils, of course, universities, research institutes, ministries linked to STI, and others as well, that will be identifying thanks to your help. So basically, if you're interested, and I hope you are, by having your institution join this international community of practice, we'll be publishing, sorry, a call for expression of interest also next month, so in early January 2026, where in this call for expression of interest, we'll ask you to sort of demonstrate this existing good policies and practices that the institution has in place, as well as evidence of what has worked. And then, as I was saying before, indicating your institution's willingness to share its institutional experiences. So what does this engage being part of, or joining this community of practice? So basically, it of course means that you will be joining a global knowledge sharing network of institutions. And all of you will have this proven gender inclusive policies and practices. It will be also about working with UNESCO to document and present the successful reforms, but also the lessons that you learned from implementing these practices, and then sharing actually how you have been with the implementation of these best practices. And this will inform the knowledge products, the briefs, the reports that at UNESCO will be producing to share your good experience with the world, basically to inspire change. And then 5 institutions from this community of practice will, in another phase, be identified to be part of the peer matching model that Pukar was presenting earlier. If you remember, it's this pairing between reform leading institutions with reform seeking institutions, and that would learn from the reform leading institutions. But that's for the second phase. The first step is really to kind of identify and collect these best practices to create some knowledge products that can disseminate it worldwide. Now you might think, okay, that sounds very great, very interesting, but what do I gain as an institution out of this? Of course, you will gain some visibility as a leading institution in the science ecosystem, and the one especially that is gender inclusive. You'll have the opportunity maybe to participate in this peer matching model that will be very inspiring and very important for capacity building. Of course, we'll work very closely together with UNESCO and you to make sure to engage you in international exchanges, workshop, conferences, policy dialogues, so that you can share your experience and also highlight your involvement in this project. Of course, you will be recognized for your institutional achievements on gender equality in science on UNESCO and OWSD platforms, whether it's on our websites. We also have a great LinkedIn group called UNESCO Advancing Gender Equality in Science, and Julian, would be great if you can send the link to this group in the chat, where of course we'll be really like highlighting through web stories also, for example, what you did and why is it great and why it had an impact on gender equality in science. And then I think in my mind, the most important is that you really will have a very meaningful role in working with us in shaping the global agenda for gender inclusive STI governance and ecosystems. And that's really the mission that we have and we hope to achieve together. So it was a lot of information. Very quick summary slide. Everyone can have a role somehow to play in this project. That's really the idea, working together with our wonderful community and you all through different ways. As Ali explained, there are these national gender and science committees that will be implemented in some countries in the Global South through the national chapter of also, if you're interested and you're not part of the national chapter, you didn't know about it, you don't know how to apply, you can send an email to us, you can put in the chat, we can put you in contact with the right person to see how to apply and submit the submissions together. And of course, these committees, and Ali explained, will also identify some key national authorities and stakeholders. So that might be you as well. If you're interested, let us know and we'll involve you at the right time, at the good timing, and let you know all the process. So that's the first one. And the second way is what I just explained to you at the international level with this community of practice of institutions. And for this, I actually invite you and mention to scan this QR code. And Julien, if you can send the link in the chat, please, which is sort of, it's on the call for expression of interest, but it's sort of a little pre-form, let's say, to kind of for us understand which kind of institution would be interested, kind of have a very first mapping of what kind of best practices exist. So sort of for us to help us also maybe do some categories based on the different themes. So really filling in this form does not commit you to anything. It's really to help us make sure that we don't lose track of you, that you're included in our mailing list for the real call for expression and for us to better kind of refine the call for expression of interest. So if you think that your institution could be interested, even if you're not the right person in your institution, please go ahead, submit the form, and then we'll get back to you if we have any questions, and we'll share with you the real form. And if there are replies to some questions that you do not know, you're not sure, it's fine. You can put not applicable in the form, or you can just honestly write that you're not sure. And really, it's really a preliminary form. But it would be great if you could fill in if you're just interested, so that we have an idea of also of the number of institutions we can include. And then for the national committees, as Ale was saying, we'll be sharing hopefully tomorrow also the link to fill in this special expression of interest. So this was a whole hour presentation. We took a bit more time than planned, but yeah, I hope this was inspiring, that you have a better idea of how it works and that you're already thinking how you could get involved and work with us on this. And I see that we have 5 minutes maybe to see some of the questions that were put in the chat. So Ale and Pukar, Ale, to tell us if there's some interesting questions, as I was sharing my screen and cannot see them yet. And then we'll have some closing remarks from Matilda from IDRC. So we do need to keep 3-4 minutes for her as well.
So one of the questions is, how will the national GIS committees be formed? And so this is basically, you know, around issues that are most important in these countries that you're applying from. There is the national chapter of OWSD. So we want to then speak with, you know, the government, academia, and relevant stakeholders, and form these committees, right? So it's a process of, dialogue and working with the government, led by the national chapters, towards the formation of the national GIS committees. And the other question that I could answer before passing to Alessandro, where there's a specific question for you, is NGO research institutions, how do I get involved? As Laura said, there's a role for everyone in different ways. You can potentially be part of the national GIS committees. You can also support in the process of data collection, evidence generation, identifying policy priorities, and or the international community of best practice that Laura highlighted. Over to you, Alessandro. There's a question on this bottom-up approach. How will it work in the 3 years?
Thank you, Pukar. I've replied all that in the chat.
Okay.
Also, something that is very, very interesting is that I can already see that you're already getting in touch and in contact with the different OWSD national chapters and exchange of information with the potential key partners at national level. So that it's very, very interesting. We are going to reply to all your questions. In sake of time, we cannot do it now, but we are live. But we are going to have in the website a sort of Q&A. So we are going to keep all your questions and reply also offline. But as we said, also there were some questions about the slides and the sharing of record sessions. Everything will be shared. And regarding the links of expression of interest, as my colleague said, one of the institution, Laura, already shared a link for pre-interest, and the one on the National Gender and Science Committee will soon be available, most probably already tomorrow. I think that there are also other very interesting questions, but in sake of time, I think we can reply on them on offline. So since we only have a couple of minutes, I think Laura, back to you. So I think we can go down to the closing remarks too. Thanks.
Great. Thank you so much, Pukar and Ale, for this. Matilda, are you here? If you
Yes,
can.
can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Thank you so much, Matilda, for being here. So, just to introduce you very quickly, and then you will do it much better than me. But Matilda is the original reason of why we are all here today. She's from the Canada's International Development Research Center, who is supporting this project and who actually managed to bring all of us, of these colleagues, together to develop this project. So, Matilda, we want to give you the floor as well for some closing remarks and just to say openly thank you again.
Yeah, thank you so much, Laura, and thank you all for such an amazing session. We're really excited to see this initiative move forward. I think it's been a long time coming, and it's really a culmination of a lot of incredible progress on this issue. We are very excited, especially to see how we can actually make some transformative institutional change to the issues that we've been discussing and researching and exploring for a long time. And I think leveraging the strong networks and partnerships that many of you on this call have, that UNESCO has, that OWSD has as well, I think it's really what's needed to make lasting and impactful change. We're incredibly excited to kind of join you all on this journey, and we really hope that as many of you can get involved as we can kind of get you involved. Thank you, Laura, and thank you to both the UNESCO and OWSD team for working together on this. It's really exciting, and we're really, really looking forward to seeing where this all goes. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Matilda, for this inspiring and kind words. And now I'll give the floor to Tonya to end this webinar that we still have 3 minutes for the final words this time.
Thank you, Laura. Thank you, Matilda. Thank you, Pukar. Thank you, Alessandro. And thank all of you who have been on this call, listening patiently and putting all your questions in the chat. I have to say, I'm sorry that there is we haven't put exactly the right numbers of national chapters up there in the chat. That will be available for you tomorrow on the OWSD website. We will be publishing the expression of interest also up there, and the template form that you can fill in. As Alice said, there will also be different information sessions being held over the next few weeks, so you're not going to be left on your own just to complete this. This is definitely an information gathering process. We want the applications to be very well considered. We want to support you if you are enthusiastic and interested. Perhaps you feel that you don't have all the parts that you need for this application, but please do contact us anyway, and we can see perhaps if we can put you in touch with people that you could then include in your application. We do really want to support you as much as we can. At the same time, we also need to be convinced that you can carry out this work, and that you have the means and the staying power to carry out the work. We hope you've understood the gains that there would be for you in being involved in this project. The actual financial remuneration may not be enormous. At the same time, we believe it's enough to support you to hold meetings, to gather people together, to bring on consultants if you need to do the data collection, for example. But we hope that you will be, we know that you will have to put in also some voluntary time, but we also believe that you will benefit from the leadership training, from the collaborations, from the connections and the status of being involved in, having a direct impact on the policies in your country. So it's definitely a reciprocal process. We know that you will be giving a lot, and a lot of it you will have to do. It may not necessarily all be financially rewarded, but we believe that there will be a great deal of other huge impacts for you in your countries and for your education systems. So we hope that that will be enough to keep you inspired and enthusiastic about the project. So thank you all again for being here, and we look forward to your follow-up questions and speaking with you over the next few months to help you and support you in setting up these wonderful committees. Anybody else want to add anything from the panel before we say goodbye?
I think that we're all very happy to see that we had really over 400 participants when we combined both sessions. So yes, and thank you also to the team behind all this project. It takes time to prepare this. So thank you to the colleagues, and we'll get in touch with everyone. And we'll send the reports, the recording, the slides, and the key links as well for the people asking.
Thank you. Bye-bye, everyone. Bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you, everyone.
Bye-bye, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Goodbye.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you so
Bye-bye.
much.
Thank you so much. Very
Thank-
interesting. Bye-bye.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Goodbye. Merci beaucoup.
Thank you so much.
Merci.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much.